meeting you right where you are on your foster care journey. This is the Forgotten Podcast.
Welcome to the Forgotten Podcast, where we are sharing the stories of the foster care community and offering hope and practical help to you on your foster parenting journey. Today, we are here to discuss a topic that is important, that is a fun topic, but also one we haven't really discussed too much here, and that is story, the power of story, and even more so, reading aloud to our kids. It's kind of this pivotal part of childhood. Our guest today is very passionate about reading books aloud to kids of all ages. So Sarah Mackenzie is here. She is a mother of 6. She's a best-selling author and host of the Read-Aloud Revival podcast. She lives in the Pacific Northwest, where she reads aloud and works to leave each day a little more beautiful than she found it. Sarah, thank you for being on our show.
Oh my goodness. It is just an absolute delight to be here. Thanks, Jami.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to talk about this. I currently have a lot of children. I have older children who are up and grown, but I recently had a baby. And so I am doing a lot of reading aloud again. He is 15 months old, and so this is going to be really fun.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to first ask, why reading aloud? Like, where did your passion for this come from?
Well, interestingly, I think most of us read aloud, like we read bedtime stories to our kids before they're able to read on their own, right? So I think we all do tend to read, especially exactly like you said, you have a 15-month-old. We're used to reading a board book or a picture book to our 15-month-old. When my oldest 3 were I think they were probably about 8, 6, and 4, I heard a talk. I was listening to a conference recording from a man who was talking about how the best way to help our kids become good communicators and to help them with their reading and writing is actually to keep reading aloud even beyond when they can read to themselves, and to read aloud just a ton, just an absolute ton. And it was a very compelling talk, so I got kind of inspired and thought, I'm going to start reading aloud more often to my kids and see what happens. And the things that he said would happen that, like the academic benefits, like I could see their vocabulary growing. I could, all of the academic things that he mentioned, I could see, oh, this is making a difference. But the thing that caught me off guard that I wasn't prepared for was just how connected we felt to each other. And also this realization that I had that every time we were reading a story, we were back aligned with each other. So even if kids were fighting, there was squabbles happening, especially as my kids got older and they got into the teen years and young adulthood, even if we were kind of batting at against each other, having a hard time seeing eye to eye, when we sat down to read a story, we're rooting for the same characters and holding our breath at the same moment or tearing up at the same moment. And it just kind of reminded me and them that we were all for each other. And it was this bridge that it can be, I think what we all want more than anything is to build these lasting relationships, warm, nurturing relationships, right?
That's right.
To connect. And that can be just really hard, especially as the kids get older. And I found reading aloud to be like this it almost feels too simple because it's not super complicated. It doesn't cost anything. You don't have to do it every day. There's all these little things that make it feel like it's not actually doing much work, but it's doing so much heavy lifting when it comes to helping us connect with our kids. That's when I started to become really passionate about reading aloud and started talking about it on the Read-Aloud Revival podcast.
Wow, that is so cool. And connection with our kids is such a key goal and such an important, it's not just like a goal. Really, it's so important in our relationships and growing those relationships. And obviously we're talking to a lot of people in the foster care world, and connection, attachment, these are things we're really trying to think a lot about. And so as you think about foster families or people welcoming new kids in, how does reading aloud, does it build that connection in a different way? Or maybe just keep telling us the benefits of how that can actually help even with connection, with attachment, even to new family members.
I don't have any experience with fostering, I have so much love and respect for my friends and people I know and all the listeners here who are doing this incredibly important work. And really living out that being the hands and feet of Christ. One of the things that I think is the gift of a story is that we were made for story. We were made in story. Like when we think about the way that Jesus taught in Scripture, he taught through story. Even the whole sweeping history of salvation is a story. It speaks to us on a very deep level. And one of the things that I think is particularly amazing about sharing stories, not only does it, like I just mentioned, how it kind of puts us on the same side of the fence almost, like reminds us that we're for each other, but it also gives us this opportunity to walk a mile in the shoes of someone else. Because every story, there are characteristics that most stories have in common. And really, what most stories are doing is they're about a character who wants something and needs something. Those aren't usually the same thing. They usually know what they want. They don't always know what they need. And they have to overcome obstacles in order to get what they want or need to become the person that they need to become. That's kind of the like really zoomed way out on a movie or a book or a episode of a TV show. That's what's happening. You have a character who wants or needs something they have to overcome, and they fail and they fail, and then they somehow become who they were meant to be, and so that they can make the world a better place. That's really what most stories are. Now, if we give our kids a lot of stories, we're actually giving them the chance to bear witness to that over and over and over again, which I think is really a powerful thing, because I know that one of the things I worry about as a mother, and I imagine this is something that comes up a lot when you're fostering as well, which is like, how do I know what you're going to need? Like, how do I make sure I meet your needs? How do I give you what the ache that you have in your heart? How do I meet you there? And how do I prepare you for what's coming next when I don't know what's coming next for you? And so the opportunity to say, like, I don't actually know what's coming next for this child, but I'm going to give them the chance to walk a mile in the shoes of someone else over and over again, to bear witness to this character overcoming obstacles again and again, like really fortifies us on this really deep level. There's something else actually that comes to mind as I'm saying this. I'm thinking about how there are quite a few studies that show that kids who read a lot of books or who are read to a lot grow into adults that are more empathetic and compassionate, which makes so much sense when we go back to this idea of like you're walking in the shoes of another person who lives, you're reading stories probably that about kids who live very different lives than you are in different parts of the world with different experiences and different struggles. And one of the things that a book actually gives us stories do this, whether it's a movie or a TV show or a book, but one of the things that a book does that visual stories don't is they actually take us into the mind of the reader. I think this is why so many of us be like, well, the book was better than the movie, and it's because in the book you get inside the character's head because you understand how they're thinking and feeling. In a movie or a TV show, it's all dialogue. You only get to see kind of what they can show on their face and what they say, right? In a book, we actually get to not literally. I was going to say literally climb into the shoes of another. That's the exact wrong use of that word. But we get this opportunity to step in their shoes in a different way because we're privy to their thoughts. And honestly, we don't even actually have access to most people's inner thoughts, even like our closest friend, the people in our lives. But that's something we get through a book that we don't get in another way. And there's something really bonding and unifying about doing that thing where you're bearing witness to this over and over again with somebody else.
Man, I can relate to that even. It just made me think about this podcast. We've been going for 10 years. I've heard over 300 stories, essentially. And it's like, it's grown me so very much. And it's grown my empathy. It's grown my compassion. It's grown my understanding. And so, even just on this medium right here, I see that. But there's something too about being in the same space with each other. Everyone just kind of like all together reading. Like that is
so often, and this is not a judgment because this is true in my house too. So often when we are in the same room, we're not always in the same room. We're on our phones or listening, have earbuds in, or and so one of the things that is a gift for me as a busy mom who has a lot on her plate is that when I'm reading aloud to my kids, I can't really do anything else. I have actually had the experience of reading aloud to my kids and like making a grocery list or thinking through like what needs to happen next while I'm reading. And then what inevitably happens when this happens is one of my kids will say, "Who's that character?" Or like, "What just happened?" And I'll be like, "I don't know. I was also tuning out, you know?" So I'll go, you know what? Let's go back and read a few pages again because I don't know. I was also kind of not. And it just sort of like it's a gentle pulling together of our attention and presence.
Right. It's a way to model being present. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
because like you said, so often we are all on our phones doing the thing. And, hmm.
Even when they're
Oh,
young, I know like when I would
yeah.
read a picture book to my little kids when they were younger, my youngest ones are twins who are 12. And man, I was like gunning for bedtime by the end of the day. And so I would choose the shortest picture books I could for
Yes.
bedtime. And
Or
sometimes,
accidentally, quote,
oh,
accidentally skip a few pages.
exactly. And the funny thing is, you can sometimes get away with that, but a lot of the time they'll be like, "Wait a second,
Uh-huh.
you
That's
missed
right.
something, you know?
Yeah.
Or that doesn't make sense. Or did you read all the words on that page, Mom? You know?"
Yes. It's right.
Yeah,
So
it's just
right.
like a gentle, like, "Oh, we
Mm.
can be here now. We always have time to read for 5 or 10 minutes." That's one of the things
Yeah.
I've been telling myself
Hmm.
lately is, you always have time for it, and it's the little tiny things that mean the
Mm.
most. So I'll tell myself, like, you always have time to read scripture and pray for 10 minutes. Like, you
Mm.
are not so busy and important that you can't take
Mhm.
10 minutes to do this, right?
Right.
Or you always have time to answer the phone when that friend who's having a crisis calls. Like, you actually do have time for that. And one of the things I like to tell myself is you always have time to read for 10 minutes because it's a lot of times I think we even if we know, the power of actually reading aloud it's tremendous. I actually don't know anything else you can do in that's free that you can do in 10 minutes that you don't have to do every day that can make a lifelong impact on your kids. I don't know anything that's quite as powerful as this. And simple. It does all the things that it does. Even so, I find myself like probably a lot of listeners or viewers like who are thinking the same thing that are like, I do want to read aloud. I got to find like a half an hour, and it's really hard to find a half an hour when
Yeah.
everybody's home or and the kids don't want to. And then what do I do with that kid who's like, this is for babies. I don't want to read, I don't want to listen to this.
Totally. Yep.
And really, I'll try to remind myself, well, we don't need to read for half an hour. We need 10 minutes. I don't need all of the kids. I just need whatever kids are here in front of me. There's like, you always have time for a connection. That's something I've been trying to tell myself because it's so hard to remember when you're like, but I do, but I also have to take the kids to the dentist and, one of their brackets fell off. So now I have to go back to the orthodontist and there's like the grocery list and like all the things
Mhm.
on So it's
Yeah.
yeah.
I like the 10-minute thing. And is that in general what you do? I mean, let's talk really practically.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is it 10 minutes generally?
I always tell myself it's 10 minutes. That is always what I say. And then once we start, usually it goes
Mhm.
longer because usually I can
Mm.
find more
You can
time.
get
It's like,
into it.
yeah, you get into
Yeah.
it. Everyone kind of relaxes.
Mm.
Um, it's enjoyable. Or if you're reading a page turner, something where they're like, just one
Mhm.
more chapter, Mom.
Yeah.
But I always tell myself 10 minutes. That's always what I
Yeah.
say. Like, you're going to read
Okay.
over 10 minutes. And sometimes we have to stop at that point. At one point, I did the math on this because it occurred to me that anytime I tell myself I need to do something every day, I just get
Mhm.
very overwhelmed. Like, okay,
Yeah.
even something that I want to do, like my prayer and Bible time, you want to do that every
Mm.
day. I remember taking my kids to the dentist when they were younger, and I had 3 babies, toddlers, and then 3 older kids. And I think he had to have been like 7 or 8. My son, the dentist goes, okay, or the hygienist looks at me and she's like, does he floss every day? And I thought, I don't actually know if that kid has clean underwear on, let alone if he's ever seen floss. But and every day, another thing I have to do every
Yeah.
day. What I realized is actually, if you were to read aloud for 10 minutes every other day, that is about a half an hour a week, 35 minutes-ish a week. That's 30 hours over the span of a year. And when I look at how long it takes, you could read the entire Chronicles of Narnia in 30 hours. You could read over 200 picture books in 30 hours. 10 minutes doesn't feel like much, but even if that is actually all we did and we didn't keep going, it's like drops in a bucket over time that like overflows. And you're like, wow, how did this bucket overflow? It overflowed one tiny drop at a time.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it is so I mean, isn't that true in so many things in life? It's those small, consistent things that you do most every day, right? It isn't it's kind of the 80%, the 90%, like, uh, really trying to stick with when we get that perfectionist mindset, I think it collapses in on all of us. It's just too much.
It's so true for
We're not
everything.
perfect people.
Yes, we think to ourselves, like, I've got to make dinner, like a homemade dinner every night for my kids to, carry with them that we had dinner. That's not really true. If you make
Yeah.
dinner twice a week, their kids are going to think that you made dinner all the time,
Right.
Now with the perspective, my oldest kids, out of my 6, I've got a 24, 22, and 20-year-old. Those are the 3 oldest now. And it's so interesting to me, the things that they remember that we did all the time, that some of them I think, I just kind of let them say that, Like, yeah, we definitely went camping every year. We didn't go camping every year. But we,
Totally.
in their mind, they're like, well, I spent my childhood, doing that thing. It's the same thing I know that where I struggle the most as a mom is that I will think, if I'm not doing it perfectly, it doesn't count at all, which is just not how it works,
Right. Exactly. I love that. Okay, how do you choose books? I mean, that in itself can get incredibly overwhelming.
Yes, it totally can. And I remember, like, I have the distinct memory of going into the library when my oldest daughter was a baby and, like, bringing home a bag full of books and thinking, okay, half of these make me want to poke my eyeballs out, and the other half are pretty delightful. But what is happening here? Like, what is it that's actually what at Read-Aloud Revival, that is kind of what we do now, is we make book lists that are like, these are great read-alouds. We're very selective, so they're very short book lists. You can Google like books for kids who like horses and come up with 50 different lists, but ours is probably going to only have 10 books on it, and probably those 10 books are going to be a win. We're just very
Yeah, I love
selective
that.
because there's nothing more discouraging than going, okay, I'm going to do this, and then you carve out some time and you make a new habit you get everybody around, you kind of overcome all the obstacles to actually reading.
Yeah.
And then the book is a dud. It's such a bummer.
Yes.
A couple of things is that I really think the kids we're reading to, they can tell if we're enjoying it or not. And so I would worry a lot less about reading like the right books and just finding books that are enjoyable, because when we read a book we enjoy with kids, they enjoy it more. If they enjoy our enjoyment, it's why like it's really delightful to watch a baby's face when an adult is laughing, because they take so much joy from that. So that's the same thing that we're doing for our kids. It's like we're modeling this enjoyment, which is a lot easier to do if you actually enjoy the book and not if you're faking enjoying the book.
That's right.
I always try to read aloud a book that appeals to the least interested kid. So, for example, my older 3 were, if they were 14, 12, and 10, that my 2 oldest are girls, and then there's a son. My son was the one who was not the one that loved reading the most yet, the most resistant to reading aloud. So I would choose a book that I thought would most appeal to him, because one of the things that's amazing about a read aloud is that every child who hears it will get what they're ready for. So let's just take the Chronicles of Narnia, since I mentioned them, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You can read that book to a 5-year-old. They will be very enraptured. You can read that book to a 10-year-old, or they can read it to themselves, maybe. And they will be equally enraptured, but they're going to hear different things than the 5-year-old. So is your 15-year-old. And I, as a 44-year-old, have read that book 10 times, maybe more. And I reread it again, and it will still meet me where I'm at. And so that's one of the things that stories do, is because we are all different, the story is different depending on what the reader brings to it. A lot of authors will say, actually, the book's not really finished until the reader reads it, because they bring their own life experience to it and see something different. It's why, like, when I read Little Women, when I read Little Women as a teenager, I definitely identified with Jo March, one of the daughters. And now as a grown woman, when I read that book, there's a special something that hits me about Marmee, the mother, because I'm a different person than I used to be when I was 18, So I think when we're choosing books, we want to choose books that are enjoyable for us to read, that I would focus more on books that our kids are interested in reading than on like trying to get the right books. There are delightful classics and wonderful read alouds, but that are books that you also want to expose children to. But always when especially if I'm just starting to read aloud to some kids or trying to start this habit, we want them to just really enjoy it. When we're choosing books at Read-Aloud Revival to put on our Read Aloud book list, we are always looking for books that leave the reader with hope. So I feel quite strongly that we are duty bound to tell our children the truth. And the truth is that we are a people of hope. And so that means that our books you can read a story where terrible things happen. You can read a story that's scary. You can read a story that's sad. But at the end, the gift that a really good book does is it helps us see the world and the people we encounter in it with fresh eyes and with hope. And that feels like a tremendous gift we can give our kids again and again with these stories. So anyway, if listeners are thinking like, okay, but like really, how do I pick the next book? That's actually at readaloudrevival.com. You will find book recommendations. We have a list of our tippy top favorites that are like, these are nearly perfect wins if you're just getting started with Read Aloud. And they're organized by age, whether you're reading to a 4-year-old or a 14-year-old. And then we have book lists that are, for kids who are interested in different things or based on different times of the year. So it's all there. And those are all free. Yeah.
I love that. Hey, friends, it's Jami, just popping in here for a minute to say we love to hear from you. And it's really important to us that what we're bringing to you is actually helping you, is meeting felt needs. Would you give us a rating and review or contact us directly and just let us know how we are being helpful, but also, are there ways we can be more helpful to you? We want to hear from you. We're encouraged by you, and we're here for you. So thank you for taking a few moments to do that for us. And now let's head back to the episode. I'm thinking of kids, you're thinking, I want to get started. You might have young kids, you might have older kids. Either way, you may have kids who are disinterested or also just struggle to stay still or to, that you feel like, how is this going to work here? Like, how do we avoid the perfectionist mindset there too? And because what we don't want, I imagine, is everyone sit down and listen. You're going to love this. Right? And
I've
then
never
we start
done
to get
this,
like,
Jami.
we must enjoy this moment together,
Yes,
all of us.
Totally. Oh gosh, so many times, so many different experiences and scenarios, right? Oh goodness. Yes. So something that's super interesting is that there is some research that shows that for a lot of kids, especially boys, but it can be true for so many kids, they actually listen better when they're moving, when they're doing something with their body. And so the idea that they would sit still and listen is not true for most kids. In fact, I never require my kids just sit still and listen to a read aloud. So a couple of things that we've done. Now, it kind of depends on the kid. So my now 20-year-old son was just all over the place. I mean, I would be reading aloud. My older girls, they would be like sitting there coloring or doing a puzzle or something. He would be jumping on the trampoline. And I would think there is no way this kid could possibly be hearing me or understand. And then the next day I would say, okay, where did we leave off? And he was the one that could tell you exactly what happened yesterday. He was just very kinesthetic. He was very in his body. He still is. As a high schooler, we would read C.S. Lewis together, and he would sit there and do push-ups and sit-ups while I was reading aloud.
Yeah, okay,
He just needs to be in his body. So a few things I got into the habit, this has been so helpful for me, is to have like I've done it a few different ways, but have like either a bucket of things that kids can do while you're reading aloud. Things like Play-Doh, coloring, puzzles. They can do almost anything that's not like where they have to, I mean, anything that you could do while listening to a podcast. If you think about that, like, washing dishes. We folded so much laundry while I read to them. They folded so much laundry while reading aloud.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is that we could read aloud for longer. They enjoy it more, especially if it's something they only pull out when we read aloud. Not that I would keep it from them otherwise, but it was like an opportunity to Now, if you want to get out your scrapbook stuff, or if you want to get out your hand lettering stuff, or if you want to get out Legos, lots and lots of Legos during Read Aloud. The only thing I will say about that is the most practical thing I'll say all day is make them dump the Legos out first before you read aloud, because there's something about reading aloud and the kid putting their hand in and rifling through that like singes the end of your nerve endings.
Yes.
You won't survive it. So,
I get that.
so I would say, first of all, they don't need to sit still and listen. That's one thing.
Good.
And I, a lot of times would make it, so I'd say, okay, we're going to read aloud in 5 minutes. Everybody grab your things, especially if they're all in a bin. I've also done it before where there was like a magazine holder for each kid. You know what I'm talking about? Those little and it's like, just stick your things in there and they could just go over and grab that drawing, that map they were drawing yesterday, or that whatever. I also, when babies and toddlers, for so long I had older kids and then babies and toddlers. And so I would have like a bucket of things that I did only pull out for the babies and toddlers during read aloud time, because then it's kind of like when they go to the church nursery and like all the toys are new.
Yep.
So it's just like, you can change them out, once a season or something. That can help a lot. The other thing is I don't require my kids to be all that enthusiastic. So what I found is that I can say, like, you don't have to enjoy it. You don't have to want to come, but you do have to come. There's something that takes the pressure off of them for that. It's only 10 minutes and it's okay if you don't like it. You still have to come listen. Because what I have found so many times is that my kids, there's this resistance to something. It's not usually the read aloud, actually. They think it is. It's actually resistance to, I don't want to be told what to do, or I don't want to be in the same room as my siblings because they're getting on my nerves, or there's something. And it's so like me and Jesus. Like, I don't want to sit down and do my prayer and Bible time right now, but like, I don't have to like it. I do have to sit down and do it. And then usually at the end, I'm really glad that I did, that kind of thing.
Sure. I love that. And I think that's super important to not, again, it's like when the more we try to control their feeling about it, it's just going to create tension. It actually destroys that connection, right? If I'm like, you must love this. No, you need to be here. And maybe you will enjoy it and maybe you won't, which actually lends to another question. You say 10 minutes and sometimes you go on. How do you determine, what if one kid's like, I'm out of here, and other kids are like, I want to keep going?
It kind of depends on how old they are. For a long time, I would try to stop before my antsiest kid was done. So it might just be really short. We might read aloud more times during the day. Like maybe I would try like do that a couple of times a day so that because it can take a long time to get through a book if you're only reading 10 minutes at a time,
Right.
I will say, as the older kids became teenagers and got jobs and things, if I was waiting for them to be home every time we read aloud, we would just never read aloud because it was, And so what I would find is we would read aloud in the evening, let's say after dinner, and then whoever was home would be there to listen. Like everyone's going to come. But if my daughter was at work, then the next day when she was there, we'd say, okay, who wants to catch Audrey up on what happened in our story? And the great thing about that is it does a couple of things, actually. It keeps your momentum going, but it also, every time your kids have to retell a story, they're like narrating the story. They're like in their mind, they're actually reviewing everything that they can remember, putting it in sequential order, teaching it to somebody else. It's doing a tremendous amount of work in them, but it doesn't feel like it. Because you're like, oh, just catch her up on what happened. That feels very different than, can you narrate what happened in this story yesterday? Or who, as like a quiz, like to make sure they listened or something.
Totally.
So I would also say it just kind of depends on what phase of life the kids are in, how old they are. I just think keeping it shorter but ending before everybody gets tired of it is always going to be a better experience.
Right. Keep them wanting to come back at least as best as possible.
Yes, exactly. And then I think also if I have a particular child who's just sort of resistant or is like complaining a lot about the book, I might not tell them this, but I will definitely pick the next read aloud for that kid. Like, okay, I read this, I read Little House in the Big Woods, and he seemed not like he wasn't enjoying it. So the next book is going to be like a fantasy book with dragons in it or something, something that's sword fighting and action. So I think, I think there are, but I wouldn't necessarily be like, you have to sit here and the next book that I pick will be one that you enjoy. Just sort of do it.
Are there some books that I'm sure there are? Maybe give me a couple of examples of times when you started a book, you were a little skeptical if you were going to like this book, and it just spoke to you deeply.
There have been times when I've started a book and been like, nope, I didn't think I was going to enjoy this one, and it was a slog. Usually, I don't read a lot of them. I like some. There have been many times where I've read about 25%, and then like, I'm not enjoying this. Half my kids aren't. That guy's really loving it. So I'll be like, you get to finish reading this, or I'm going to get you this audiobook so you can finish listening to this. We're going to start reading something else. But I will say I am not a big fantasy reader myself. Like for my own reading, I like historical fiction and family stories and contemporary. But there have been a lot of two of my kids just love fantasy stories. And one of the books that really caught me off guard was it's a whole series called The Wingfeather Saga by Andrew Peterson. And it starts with a book called On the Edge of the Dark Sea of Darkness. And it is so strange. It is funny. It is quirky. It is unexpected. He makes up creatures and he makes up words. And it is unexpectedly done. And it's so, there is some like gospel truth in that. The whole series that is not at all on the nose, but you feel it in your bones when you're reading. And so that was like a really delightful one. Another experience that we had was The Green Ember by S.D. Smith. Now, this was right after it came out, and now that book is very, very popular and everybody loves it, which it earned. But I had not heard anyone talk about it yet. It was brand new. I just stumbled across it online and thought, well, actually, I stumbled across an article written by the author that I thought was pretty compelling. Then I went to his website and thought, oh, he's written a fiction book. Oh, it's fantasy and it's about rabbits. I don't know if I'm going to like that. Well, I haven't heard anyone talk about it. I'm going to order it. I'm just going to order it. And then I just decided to start reading it, knowing nothing about this book. And several of my kids will still to this day, my adult kids will say, that was the best read-aloud experience. Like all-time favorite read-aloud experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes they just kind of catch you off guard.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to hear because, I would be similar. I'm not so much of a fantasy.
No.
That's not where I'd be drawn. And yet I think sometimes in those you get these stories that just grab you in different ways.
Yeah.
Definitely like Chronicles of Narnia stuff. Like some of those things you're just like, boom, like where did that come from?
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes. And actually, that kind of brings up another thing, which is when my two older kids who loved fantasy so much, when they were like 10, 12, 14, 16, they would never have chosen to read anything except fantasy on their own. So I found that about every other book, I would read a book that I didn't think they would choose on their own, a classic or a historical fiction or something that just wasn't fantasy, right? And that was a really enjoyable way to help them get stories that I wanted them to have, like I wanted them to enjoy, but I knew they wouldn't if I assigned it to them or was like, I think you should read this book. Even now, I'm a voracious reader. And if someone hands me a book and is like, I think you should read this book, I think it will make you a better person, I am not going to read the book. I'm not going to enjoy it, and I'm going to be offended the entire time I'm reading. And so we do this to our kids, like, you should read this book, and there's just nothing compelling about that. But the invitation to, like, I cannot wait to share this book with you. I don't know if you're going to like it as much as I do, but then just reading and then seeing what happens is pretty fun. It's pretty special.
I love that. Well, this has been fun, and it is inspiring to me. So as we kind of close out here, just specifically as you think of foster families, new kids coming into their home, trying to implement ways to help them feel safe and seen and a part of, like, again, just what are your final encouragements to them around how reading can really be a huge point of help in that?
What I love most about sharing stories is that they help us feel seen and heard and loved. Even when the people we're with can't quite see and hear and know us like we want, or like we wish they could. So many adult writers and adult readers, if you ask them what are some of the most formative books of your life, like what are the books that mean the most to you, It's such an interesting question because so often they point to a book that they read when they were a kid. And I think it's
Really?
because we feel seen and heard and understood in a way that we don't always feel in our actual life. And I would imagine, I said I've never fostered, but I would imagine that one of the struggles is like, how do you know what this is like for me? Like that kind of feeling from and trying to bridge that and be like, I know I don't actually know. And I want to connect with you and love you anyway. I really feel like one of the things that a story might be able to do is bridge that in a way that's harder for us to do any other way. Particularly because every character in a book wants and needs something. One of the hallmarks actually of children's fiction is that very often, very disproportionately amount of time, the main character is either an orphan or has lost a parent or has lost there is like that parent. And the reason
There's a
why is
loss.
because we need a character who wants or needs something that's extremely like urgent. That's what you want in a story. Like that's where most good stories come from. And so I think there's this opportunity for these kids that we so love and want to connect with to feel, even if they're connecting to the story and to the character in the story, but they're doing it with you when you're reading aloud to them. And then it ties it. I can remember, like when I think back to books, my adult kids will say this too. They can remember which house we lived in or where we read that one out loud under that tree. It's like a visceral experience of like when I met that character or had that experience, this is where we were. And so they're getting to meet these characters where they feel seen and heard and loved in a way that's really hard to articulate. They probably can't really articulate it anyway. But they're doing it with you in this particular moment. And you may never actually get to see the fruit of that or the impact of that long term. But that's like, you're like doing the good work of planting seeds in ways that you may not always get to see fruit and flower. But
Wow. I love that so much. Sarah, thank you. It has been awesome to learn from you and talk about this. And I know I will be checking out the website, and I hope our listeners will as well. But thank you for sharing and just for helping inspire us in this way. This is really, really great.
well, it's been such a joy. Thank you so much for having me here. And truly, to every family that is listening or watching and does this beautiful hands and feet of Christ work in loving the people who most need to be loved. Like, thank you so much. It is inspiring, and I'm so glad that you exist in the world.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you again for listening today. I hope this episode resonated with you. Let us know your thoughts. We really love hearing from you. And as always, if you want to learn more about TFI, catch up on past episodes, read engaging articles, or partner with us on mission with a gift of any amount, head over to theforgotteninitiative.org. And until next time, remember, if you're feeling overwhelmed, misunderstood, or questioning, why am I doing what I'm doing? Remember, you have a whole community here who cares for you. And even more, Jesus is fully able to meet your every need. Lean on Him and find rest in Him today. I look so forward to being together again very soon.
Resonate.